The next topic that we want to look at is slope-intercept form of linear equations. So the goal here is going to be to find an equation of a line given the slope and the y-intercept. Here's the general form of the slope-intercept form. So it's going to look like y equals mx plus b. In this equation, m is going to be the slope, which if you remember we had the equation for that. We had m was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then b is going to be your y-intercept. And the y-intercept is the value on the y-axis where the line crosses the y-axis. So let's say, for example, your line looked like this, and it crossed the y-axis here at 2. Then b would equal 2. So this is the general form for the slope-intercept. So example 1, let's find the equation of the line that has slope 3/4 and y-intercept -3, and we're also going to graph this. So remember the equation is y equals mx plus b. That's going to be our slope-intercept form. In the problem, it tells us that the slope is 3/4 and that the y-intercept is -3. So we're just going to plug this in. So y is 3/4 x minus 3. I guess you could also put that this was really a plus and negative, but instead of plussing and negative, we just say minus. So there's our equation, y equals 3/4 x minus 3. And the way that we graph this is the first point we're going to plot is the y-intercept. So my y-intercept was -3, so I'll put a dot here. Next, I'll use my slope. So my slope was 3/4, a positive 3/4. So that means that I rise 3, so 1, 2, 3, and then run 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 2 points on my line, so we'll connect them. And there's the graph of our line. So all we do is use the y-intercept to start with, then use your slope to find another point, and then combine the two. Next, let's rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form and then graph it. So our equation currently is 2x minus 4y equals 6. So what I want to do is I want to rearrange this. So our goal is to rearrange this to get it of the form y equals something times x plus some b. So we want to get y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do, and there are a couple things you could do. First thing I'll do is I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And when I do that, I get minus 4y equals negative 2x plus 6. And the reason I'm writing the negative 2x first is because that's just the standard form. You always write the x's first. Now I need to divide both sides by -4 to get y by itself. So I'll divide this side by -4, but remember you got to divide everything by -4. So that gives me negative 2x over -4 plus 6 over -4. And we're just going to simplify this. Negative 2 over -4 is 1/2. And then I have 6 divided by -4, which is -3/2. So let's simplify one more time. Y equals 1/2 x minus 3/2. So there's our equation in slope-intercept form. Now to graph it, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Start with your y-intercept. So my y-intercept was -3/2, which is right here, -1/2. My slope is 1/2, so that means I'm going to rise 1, run 2. So there's my other point on the graph, and we'll just connect the two. So there's the graph of my line. Now let's find the equation of a line with slope -2, y-intercept 4, and let's go ahead and graph that. So we're going to use our slope-intercept form, so mx plus b. In the problem, it says the slope is -2, and the y-intercept is 4. So just plugging this in, I get y equals -2x plus 4. To graph this, we'll start at 4. So we'll start at my y-intercept and use my slope. So my slope was -2, but we really want to read this as rise over run. So that's -2 over 1. Which means if I'm going to find another point, I'll go down 2 and over 1. Connect these two, and there's the graph of my line. Next, I want to rewrite this equation in slope-intercept form and then graph it. So remember, slope-intercept, you're thinking y equals mx plus b. That's your goal. So let's start with our equation. And the goal is to get y by itself. So I'm going to do something slightly different this time. I'm going to move the y. And the reason I'm going to move the y is because I don't want to have to worry about dividing by -1 in the end. So I'm going to move this y over to the right. So I'll get 2x equals 6 plus y. And now to get y by itself, that's our goal, get y by itself, I'll subtract 6 from both sides. So I'll get 2x minus 6 equals y, which we'll just rewrite it the other way. Y equals 2x minus 6. So there's our equation in slope-intercept form, and now we'll graph it. So I'll start with my y-intercept down here. It was a -6. My slope is 2, but that's the same as 2 over 1. So I'll go up 2 over 1. So rise over run, and then connect the two. And there's the equation, or there's the graph of my equation. Now let's do a vertical line. So a vertical line through -1, 3. I'm going to actually graph this first. So -1, 3, there's my point, and it's a vertical line. So there's my line. The issue is this line doesn't have slope. The slope is undefined. So m is undefined, which means we can't really use the form y equals mx plus b because m doesn't exist. Whenever you have a vertical line, what you want to notice is that the x-axis, or the x-coordinate, is always the same for any point that I choose on this line. And if I choose this one, the x-coordinate is -1. If I choose this one down here, the x-coordinate is -1. So the way you write the equation of a vertical line is always x equals whatever the x-coordinate is. So for us, our answer is x equals -1. So when the slope is undefined, you're not going to use slope-intercept form or really any other form. It's always going to be x equals a value. So for us here, x equals -1.